Hello everyone. So in this lecture video, I will be talking about the competency, summarize the effects of sustainability on health and well-being. And specifically, I'll be talking about the learning objective of the standards of health and well-being that are affected by sustainable practices. So in the whole planet, the United Nations is obviously the biggest organization that actually brings all the countries together. And all the countries together, 180 or so, big, large, and small countries, have decided that there are actually 17 sustainability development goals. And this is going to be obviously revisited every so often. But if you look very, very closely at the 17 sustainability development goals, zero hunger, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, sustainable cities and communities, a lot of these 17 like sustainability development goals are obviously related directly to sustainability. All right, climate action, all of this again are related either directly or indirectly to the sustainability development goals. And the question is, why do we have these 17 sustainability development goals? And it just so happens that there is actually a measure of how well humans live in every country. And so this measurement is called the Human Development Index, and it is actually made up of three measures. The first measure is about life expectancy. The second measure is about education, and the third measure is about GDP, gross domestic product, or how much does a country generate in revenue every year. So it's probably a misnomer to say life expectancy. Life expectancy is actually not how long you live. Life expectancy is actually measured about during birth. How well do countries have their children make it to age 5 or later? Okay, so we're not talking about like how old do you live. Okay, so that's actually a small component of it, but the biggest component is infant mortality rates. If someone is born in a country, how assured are they of being able to live and grow in a good manner until the age of 5? Okay, so again, if you look at this one, greater than 0.79, if you have a measure of 1, that means you have reached perfection. Okay, so that means you have a perfect human development index, and obviously that is never ever going to occur. Okay, something close to 1, but never exactly 1. So if you look at this, everything in dark blue are highly developed countries, and actually this is actually how we go with highly developed countries, developing countries, newly industrialized countries. Okay, and everything that's actually the palest green in this thing, I don't know if you maybe that's not green, are actually countries that have the lowest, the lowest human development index. And if you can look at this, most of those countries are in Asia and in Africa, right? So in North America, Canada and the United States obviously have highly developed, high numbers for HDI, but in a lot of other countries that is not the case, right? So the SDGs, the 17 Sustainability Development Goals, is trying to improve these numbers for all of these countries, for all the countries of the world, not just for the United States and Europe. Okay, so that's a very, very important thing. There is a little bit of a, I guess, a controversy about the three measures: life expectancy, education, and gross domestic product. And the reason why that is such a problematic number is GDP, again, is how much an economy makes every year. Now, if you have to realize that GDP is is highly based upon consumption of goods and services, right? So obviously, countries that have high numbers of HDI also are the highest levels of consumers in the world. And obviously, if you consume more, the more natural resources you actually use up, right? So there's a little bit of in this case, a paradox, or in this number. So the sustainability goals the 17 sustainability development goals are brought upon by this model of the environment and a human being. And so the environment, if you look at it up on the top, the environment is both physical, biological, and psychosocial. That means, again, if you think about it, it's like the 3 Ps, okay? Human activities, and obviously the health of the individual. Now, these are all related because obviously if your human activities, and actually this should be like all two-way arrows, human activities are directly affected by the environment. If the weather is 20 below zero outside, there is no way you're going to be running outside. Now, obviously, unless you're Alaskan or something like that, okay? And obviously, if you're outside running at 50 below zero with improper clothing, well, the health of the individual in this case is going to be affected, okay? So there's always, remember that the environmental impact is always revolving around these three main relationships, okay? The environment, which is everything outside of you, but also some other things inside of you, again, because there's also an internal environment which is going on within your body, all right? Your activities and obviously your health. So these are the three main paradigms of environmental impacts. Now, there are many hazards that actually affect, right, like the health of the individual, okay? And there's actually not a lot of things out in nature that can actually kill humans, all right? Not a lot. Okay, most of the things outside in nature does not naturally kill humans. However, there are two main things that actually naturally kill humans. Actually, I could actually probably say three. The first one is there are natural pathogens. Okay, a pathogen is a microorganism, primarily a microorganism, okay, that can kill humans. So the human immunodeficiency virus is a pathogen. So if a human contracts it, there's a likelihood that they will die from AIDS. Okay, so there's a lot of other, like in this case, Ebola virus. Okay, like hemorrhagic fever. Okay, Powassan virus. A lot of these viruses, a lot of these microorganisms can actually kill humans, right? Naturally, if they make contact with it. All right, and you might be thinking, so what, Abner? Right? Biological hazards. Okay, well, one of the big things that's going on with the way the world is consuming stuff right now is a lot of these biological hazards were actually at one time sequestered, or in this case separated from humans, because a lot of the animals that actually carry these diseases actually lived in the middle of the forest beyond the reach of humans, right? So I want you to imagine that. But as progress goes on, what happens? Well, the forest eventually cuts down, okay? And then obviously a lot of these pathogens then eventually then makes contact with humans, and that's actually how a lot of this, I guess, global pandemics, or in this case, a lot of this worldwide, in this like in this case, communicable diseases actually occur. All right. So again, there's just this five main families, but you don't actually have to know that. Make sure that you understand that a lot of these biological hazards, pathogens, are actually, most of them are living creatures except for viruses, okay? But that is not the purview of this class, okay? Now, there are other types of environmental hazards, and chemical hazards is another one. And chemical hazards, again, obviously, is the two main classifications of chemical hazards in terms of humans, sustainability, lifestyle, okay, in this case are heavy metals, okay, and herbicides and pesticides. Now again, you have to understand again, why are chemical hazards related to sustainability? Well, the more population the Earth actually has, the more need we have for food. And obviously, the more need we have for food, we need to have more better yielding crops. And unluckily, in today's era, better yielding crops are actually related sometimes and oftentimes to the use of pesticides, right? Because if you have a 100-acre farm, well, let's say a corn farm, and an insect comes, okay, or a virus comes, a corn virus comes, and you don't spray your crops, while your whole, in this case, your actual whole crop then basically then gets depleted, right? And then obviously human consumption, obviously then hunger comes in, famine comes in, right? The problem with these pesticides obviously is, and I should be jumping this, is a lot of these pesticides, even though it's designed to kill other living things, you have to understand that we as human beings are also living things. And it's just so interestingly speaking that there are actually specific things inside the human body that is actually shared with insects, okay, with plants. You might think that that's not the case, but we do. We have proteins that are actually similar across species. That means plants, humans, and insects actually have the same protein. And so when you target this, you eventually actually obviously target humans as well. a big story that I would like to tell you is there's this thing called Gulf War syndrome. Now, we're still up to debate what is the actual cause of the Gulf War syndrome. But one of the big hypotheses about the Gulf War syndrome, and again, the Gulf War syndrome actually happened when we went to war against Iraq in the 1990s, in the early 1990s, when they invaded Kuwait and we invaded back. What happens is there used to be sandflies in Iraq, okay, and in Kuwait, and so we used to spray with, in this case, a pesticide, okay, that actually kills the sandflies. But this pesticide actually, in this case, affected the nervous system of these insects. Well, it just so happens that a lot of the symptoms of this Gulf War syndrome, okay, that veterans came back with, actually are also symptoms that is actually around the nervous system, right? So, you know, like cognition, mental problems, okay, hallucinations, okay. So again, we just have to be very, very careful when we manufacture something that actually kills other living creatures, because eventually that might come back to get us, okay? The other thing too is when you use herbicides and pesticides is eventually if there's 1,000 insects, you'll eventually only kill 990, okay? So there's going to be 10 insects that's going to be naturally resistant to your pesticide. Then obviously this 10 insects is going to multiply and take over, and then you have to create a new and a better pesticide. So we have to think a lot about alternatives to the use of herbicides and pesticides, okay? Heavy metals. The good thing about this is a lot of these heavy metals are banned from use already. One of the big stories that you probably have heard is the lead, you know, like in this case, the lead crisis in Flint, Michigan, okay? Now, obviously, lead was used many years ago to make pipes. And lead is actually quite a sturdy material, and it's actually quite robust, and it actually doesn't degrade over time. The problem with lead pipes, however, is if you have water flows through pipes, it's okay. But if you have acidic water that's sour that actually goes through the pipe, then the pipe becomes degraded, then lead goes into the drinking water, and then obviously this lead then goes into the brains of developing humans, especially children and fetuses, and obviously, as you can see, that's where a lot of these problems come in. All right. So again, the good thing is mercury has been banned already. Copper, lead, cadmium. Okay. An interesting thing about a lot of these metals, ladies and gentlemen, is a lot of these metals are actually are byproducts of burning coal. Because remember, again, coal comes from the ground, and guess who happens in the ground with them? Mercury, copper, lead, and cadmium. So when you burn coal, guess what comes down? Mercury, copper, lead, and cadmium. Okay, so very, very important there. So in our homes, again, this is, please read through this. Everything we touch obviously has a hazard to us, okay? FYI, everything is a hazard, okay? If you use anything, again, like the Goldilocks rule, even something good like water, if you drink too much, you actually can be killed from it, right? So this is also levels, okay? So it's not just, oh, everything you touch is hazardous. Well, yeah, a little bit might not hurt you, but if you like scrape off the ceiling paint and eat like a gallon of it, obviously that will have some issues for you. All right. So now, why do we care about this, and why do we care about contaminants that actually enter the environment? Well, even though it doesn't directly affect us, okay, if you can see this image here, it shows biomagnification. What happens is, even though small contaminants enter the environment, these small contaminants eventually make its way to us. Why? Because as you can see, this is kind of this on the osprey showing you, in this case, the food web, right? So something small will eat something small, obviously small amounts of contaminants, but obviously something like a living creature above the food chain will eat more of that, and that's actually how you magnify, right, a lot of these hazardous chemicals in predators, okay, in large animals, okay? So that's actually what is being shown by this, all right, this image, all right? There are other types of environmental hazard, natural hazard, like again like earthquakes and stuff like that, cultural hazard and lifestyle choices. But just remember, a lot of this, if you read through this, you can see that all of these are impacted by sustainable practices, right? We know that climate change has been driving extreme weather, and we know that extreme weather has been displacing humans. So again, so just read through a lot of the slides. I hope that this helps you, and good luck.